glad to be with all of you. I've been looking forward to this public webinar. It's the second of 4 webinars that the school has planned to introduce the diamond approach to those who are interested in it, who might have some sense of it, but would like an experiential taste of it. So I'm very happy to share my love of this teaching with your interest in it. And I'm curious to see what happens when love and interest meet each other. So the first webinar in the series, A.H. Almas, the pen name of Hamid Ali, presented an overview of the diamond approach path. He mentioned some of the distinctive features of this teaching. And I just want to touch on one thing he talked about during that webinar, and that's the central discovery and unfoldment of what we call presence in this teaching. Presence is something that we hear in spiritual circles and other teachings, and primarily those traditions use the word to refer to a kind of nowness, a kind of immediacy of being in the present moment. In the diamond approach, presence has a central and very important role, and we mean something quite specific by presence. We mean something different than only a kind of nowness of being in the moment. For us, presence is the direct experience of our existence, the immediacy of our beingness, the I am of who and what we are and what reality is. And moreover, this presence, which is central to the diamond approach path, is a living substance. Now, I don't mean substance metaphorically. I actually mean that for us, presence is an inner substance that we can discover in our experience that has its own life and wisdom and unfoldment. And the importance of presence on this path is that it allows us to see that being real, that being true, is nearer than we might think, that we don't need to wait to experience the vastness of being, that we don't have to put off being real until we feel the emptiness of everything, until we feel some kind of non-dual, unitive condition of reality. Presence is much closer at hand. It's in our daily lives. It's in our moment-to-moment experience. We can be real and feel joy. We can be real and feel strength or compassion or clarity, confidence, a kind of support or sense of beingness. So that's one way that the diamond approach is quite different than a number of spiritual teachings, which sort of delay or defer being real or truth to vast, non-dual or unitive states. For us, from the very beginning, from the first day of doing the practices, we can be in touch with this magical, substantial something that we call presence, that actually in the teaching we call the Elixir of Enlightenment. So I bring up this presence that Hamid talked about because today I want to talk about how this presence, this elixir of enlightenment, actually arises in our experience. And the short of it is that it arises in our experience when we are being where we are, which is the starting point of our work and our teaching, the starting point of our central practice of experiential exploration is that we always begin where we are. Now, most of the time, when I tell people who don't know the teaching that the way to everything they've ever sought or wanted, that the way to be real is to be where they are, I usually get quite quizzical looks, if not outright objections. Most people think, why would I do that? Why would I be where I am? I'd rather be anywhere else. That I'm on a spiritual path because I'd like to be somewhere else, because where I am is a pain, because it's anywhere but here. It's most of our mottos. So being where we are can seem both ridiculous and sort of like the last thing we'd want to do. Where we are, we typically take that to be a kind of narrowing of possibilities, that where I am is limited, where I am is somehow stuck or a dead end or small, and everything that is big, everything that is full of possibilities is out there. And this attitude makes sense if we consider the ordinary perspective of time and space, of external time and space, of location, the way most of us are used to it. So, for example, if I ask, where are you? Just in the normal way that we might running into each other on a street somewhere, right? You might begin the widest possibility, right? If you start really far out of where are you, you might say, I'm in the Milky Way galaxy. And then you might draw closer. I'm in this solar system. And then if you zero in even more, you might say, I'm on planet Earth. And from planet Earth, you could get even closer to where you are by saying, I'm in North America. I'm in the United States. I'm on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., which is where I am. I am in my house, in my office, in my chair. And so, from this ordinary sense of time and space of being located, it's like coming closer to where we are at each step. It seems to get smaller. It seems to get more limited, right? Like once I'm in my chair, it doesn't feel like there's anywhere else to go, right? Like I've gotten as far as I'm going, and this is a dead end. Where I am is a dead end. And we tend to apply this kind of spatial, temporal, external world orientation to our inner life. So what we know in this teaching is that inner space, inner life functions exactly in the opposite way to this. When we draw nearer to where we are, things actually don't narrow, they widen. When we zero in on exactly where we are, our experience opens, something moves, something deepens. It unleashes a certain inner dynamism to get very exact and precise about where we are. It doesn't limit us. In fact, it's just the opposite in the inner world as to the outer world. So today I want to focus on this opening, right? So presence arises by being where we are, making contact with where we are in an exact, precise way opens our experience. So I really want to get very sort of grainy about what this opening is, what it is that's opening, what it means, what it feels like, and what it's good for. So in service of that, I'd like to do a little experiment. So right now, all of you all over the world, Shanghai, Belgium, Singapore, California, Toronto, all the places you've mentioned, I want to practice with you sensing your right hand. So if you would just stick your right hand on the table in front of you, on your lap, whatever's comfortable. And just allow your eyes to close. And just sense your right hand. See what it is that shows up. You might notice that for some of you, what happens is you get a visual image of your right hand. So you can just notice that before you sense, it's more an image that shows up than sensation. See if you can feel where the pads of your fingers are touching the table or your leg. What's it like at those points? You might feel a weight or a pressure. There might be some kind of movement. You might feel a kind of heat or aliveness in those contact points. Now sense the top of your hand where nothing is touching. Maybe it's touching the air. You might be able to feel a coolness or a heat, depending on where you are in the world, depending on your air conditioning. Just sense that. Sense what the top of your hand is like versus the bottom. And you might not be able to sense anything, right? You might be focusing your attention on your hand and find no sensation at all. In which case, see what the nothing is like. Does it feel like deadness? Does it feel like a kind of blankness? Is it more neutral, like emptiness, like space? Just really allow yourself to zero in on the sensations in your right hand. So when you're ready, I'd like you to write in the chat box some of what you've experienced, just sensing your hand. Let's see what kinds of things you found. Energy, warmth, everything else that wasn't hand, heat, fullness, an electrical kind of tingling, dullness, vibration, kind of stickiness. Fine sensations, no images. So I just want to point something out to you. In all of these experiences that you've had sensing your hand, we went from really nothing to sort of a complete unconsciousness of the existence of our right hand to all this variety of experience, warmth and heat and vibration and dullness. 5 minutes ago, we were entirely unaware of the existence of our hand. And just spending a few minutes sensing it has unearthed, has unfolded all of that experience. So I wanted you to do this to demonstrate how being where we are, wherever that might be, whether it's a sensation or an emotion or a thought, can unleash a world of experience that is not there until we take the time and focus our consciousness or our attention on that experience. Um, and and anything, right? This was quite simple. We were just using our hand, but we can do the same thing with our emotions. We can do the same thing with our thoughts, where if we focus our attention on where we are, on what's happening, as our conscious attention touches in a very exact, precise way where we are, that where we are can open, that something deepens, something moves in where we are. It, in fact, isn't sort of limited and held and stuck, but there's something alive and dynamic in it. And the key to this kind of opening that I'm talking about is exactness, is precision, is getting closer and closer to what the experience is, getting very detailed and grainy. The more specific we are, the more directly and exquisitely we touch our present experience, the more that experience opens. So I'll give you a few examples, right? There's 60 of us on the call. We're all in different places. So I might not speak to exactly where you are, but you could extrapolate from what I'm saying. So let's say where you are is you're feeling anxious. And you just notice that, right? Step one, recognize you're anxious. And as you do that, you might begin to feel that there is a kind of tense, contracted spot right in your solar plexus, that there's this kind of disc just holding everything really tight. And so you can feel that tightness, right? You can feel that it's almost like something clenching, bringing everything together in that tight spot. And you might start to have associations about things in your life that you're contracting away from, right? You might feel how, oh, I kind of feel unsupported at work. I feel like my colleagues and my boss don't really understand what I'm doing, don't encourage my work. And it makes me feel anxious. It makes me feel unsupported, like something bad could happen. And you can allow that connection, that understanding that there's something in this anxiety that has to do with feeling a lack of support, a lack of ground. Gosh, it almost feels like I don't have legs, like I'm just kind of floating, and this tense spot is the only thing that's keeping me from sinking into nothing. And you can stay with that. You can see how seeing that, how recognizing that truth begins to relax the tension some. You might start to feel a kind of sadness well up for your predicament, something softening in the contraction, something starting to ease, to feel a little more spacious as the understanding comes in about why you're anxious. Or you might feel, if we take a kind of stronger emotion, you might be angry. You might be really pissed off because your friend stood you up and always stands you up, and you're sick and tired of it. And you can feel that anger, right? Because it's where you are. It's what you're feeling is anger. And so you can feel the anger. You can feel a kind of heat rising in the body. You can feel a kind of expansion of the anger, like it makes you feel big. It makes you feel strong. That you just want to push things away. It makes you feel boundaried in a way. And you can allow yourself to sense that. Well, what's that like? What is it that's getting hot? What is this heat like? And you can allow that to deepen as you feel the heat. You can think about times when other people sort of stepped on you in ways you didn't like, and how that came up in you as a kind of flash of anger, flash of wanting to separate from the situation and feel your own strength. Right? So you can work with emotions in that way, and it just keeps going, right? It's like it's at some point feeling our emotions, feeling our sensations allows allows the experience to deepen, allows our sense of what it is we're missing to come up. It allows a kind of space to arise in which we feel like we want something, all the way to presence, right? We can stay with our experiences all the way to presence. And so it's not just physical sensations and emotions. You can do this with your thoughts, right? Maybe where you are is really distracted. Maybe your thoughts are running around in a loop. And if you just recognize that, you can feel the kind of circle in the mind, right? The snake eating its own tail, a kind of loop. And you can feel the speed of it. And when you notice the speed of it, you might feel a little disoriented, like all of this kind of looping thought is designed to keep you away from something else. That there's something else going on, that this closed loop of thinking is distracting you from. Right? So you can start to go, oh, so I feel disoriented. I feel like this is distracting me from something. There's something I don't want to see. There's something happening here that this going around in circles is avoiding. I wonder what it is I'm avoiding. And you take a breath and you feel something drop, something open. And maybe you have an insight about what all the distraction is about. Maybe you see what it is you're distracting yourself from. Maybe you notice that that was a way that you got by when you were a kid. When things got difficult, you thought you distracted yourself from them, and you thought in a closed kind of loop. You sort of held yourself up, right? It's almost like helicopter propellers, right? You can have that sense that it's just holding you aloft. Just as your thoughts spin, they just kind of hold you up. And so you can wonder, well, what's down there? What am I sort of holding myself aloft from with the spinning of my thoughts? So these are some examples of the kinds of places that we are, and what can happen if we just be there, if we just allow ourselves to land there and get exact about our experience, right? Each one of these physical sensations, emotions, thought loops can just open, right? It can just sort of deepen. And where you might be, this throws a wrench into the works. Where you might be is feeling closed, right? Here I've been talking about all this openness, and where you might be is feeling closed. And so that brings up a really important point about this kind of opening and openness, which is that it's not an emotional kind of openness. It's not a psychological kind of openness where you feel, oh, I'm open to anything happening. Oh, I welcome everything. That can be part of it, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is an experiential, felt sense opening that happens when your conscious attention touches where you are in the moment, right? It's an experiential kind of opening. It's not only emotional or psychological, like I'm open to anything happening, or I welcome all peoples, and that kind of openness. It can include that, but I'm talking about a very specific experiential phenomena that is the result of consciousness touching your exact location in a very precise way. And so this kind of openness can also touch when you are closed, right? So where you are, it might be that you feel closed. And if you allow that, if you recognize that, you can feel, oh, I feel kind of shut down. I feel like there is a brick wall in front of my heart. I can actually see the bricks. I can actually see how high the wall is. And the effect of it is, I don't want any openness. I don't want anything coming in. Right? And if you feel how you don't want anything coming in, you could start to see what that is about. Right? It feels too much. It feels overwhelming. It feels too vulnerable. The times when something has come in, bad things have happened. I've been hurt. And I'm just closed. I'm not going to do that. And you can recognize that and really sense it, really be with it, and see if that's a familiar pattern in your life. You can see whether that's something that you recognize from other places in your life. And even feeling closed, even feeling a brick wall, we can open to that experience. Even that is something that if we touch, it gives. Something else happens. It doesn't stay there. We can see more about it. We can understand more about it. We can understand more about our nature, our lives, our histories, the shapes that we take. And we do that by being where we are in an exact way, in an engaged way, and allowing that to unfold, to sort of unfurl. Getting in touch with where we are allows it to unfurl, to reveal more. And so, as I said, this openness isn't necessarily an emotional kind of openness. It's actually quite experiential. And so you might be asking, well, what is it like experientially? What is this openness like when it's happening? So it can feel many different ways depending on where you are and what exactly it is that it's touching. This openness can have a felt sense of widening, like as consciousness touches exactly where you are, something widens, something deepens. It can feel like a dropping sometimes, almost like the bottom is dropping out and something goes a little deeper. It can feel um, it can feel sensual, right? It can feel like a kind of release, like when your consciousness lands where you are, something in that touching releases something. It can feel like a blossoming, right? Like the way that petals open when it meets the light. It can feel like that, like just petals opening in that way as the light of consciousness touches where you are. Something opens finger by finger. It can feel like a kind of spaciousness, like that moment when you recognize where you are with exactness and clarity. It can feel like the space gets very wide open, almost like something gets blown out, and you feel this kind of light, transparent opening in the very stuff of what you are, in the very existence of reality, right? It can have this felt phenomenological sense, this opening, not only a kind of emotional, I'm open to whatever happens, I welcome and allow it, but it can feel like this widening, this spaciousness, this kind of transparency, this very delicate sort of petals opening one by one, a kind of exquisite sort of vulnerability as the light of consciousness touches where you are. So that's some of what I mean by saying that this openness is experiential, is that the more you practice where you are, the more you engage it, the more you develop a capacity to sense what is happening with a kind of precision and a kind of specificity and a kind of felt sense, a kind of in touchness that that allows the experience to continue opening. So I've spoken some about what's happening in these moments, right? What's happening when this openness is happening? It can feel like, as I said, that that the light of consciousness, the light of awareness is in that specific moment of you landing where you are in an exact way and touching it with immediacy and with interest. It can feel like all the light of consciousness is touching you very precisely, exactly where you are, and you can't help but soften. You can't help but resonate with that light and that spaciousness. That what what in you, what in your nature is also light and space and opening responds by softening, by deepening, by that recognition of that moment of touch. So it's quite a exquisite kind of feeling, this openness that I'm talking about. And it is, as I said, how the presence that Hamid was talking about, the kind of palpable living beingness, the I amness of who and what we are, the direct experience of our existence arises in this openness, in this being where we are, and the very stuff of us responding, rejoicing to the touch by falling open. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, that's all well and good, and might be, I'm not so sure, but maybe. But what is it good for? Like, so what? So what if consciousness can open in this way? And that's a kind of long, long answer of the so what. But what I feel moved to say about that is that in the beginning, it's true that when we open, when our conscious attention touches where we happen to be for a long time, includes many difficulties. It includes hurts and abandonments. It includes tensions. Uh, it includes all kinds of problems that we'd rather not feel. But in time, as we allow these things to open, in the midst of all of these difficulties, in right sort of in the heart of them, what we can find is presence, is being. And so, what it's for is for you to actually know your nature in a deeper way. We can find all the magic and all the mystery of being in this openness. And it requires a kind of active engagement, right? So, this being where we are, it's not like you find out where you are and you get carried away by it and take a trip on the story of where you are. And it's also not like you get camped out there, right? You don't want to get carried away and you don't want to camp out. What you want to do is recognize it with exactness and with precision, and then you want to engage it. You want to find out more. It's a balance of absorption in your experience, a total in touchness, and then an engagement of following the thread, of letting that experience live, right? And as we know, anything alive does not stay still. It moves, it expands, it changes. You go from one thing to another. And so what this openness is for everything there is to know about you, about who and what you are, about reality, to open right exactly where you are, right in the middle of that openness, this dance of what you know and what you want to know, a dance of what you know and what you want to find out. All of that happens in this experiential openness as you land where you are, as you get interested in it, as you get precise about it, as you are not carried away and also not kind of attached to it. So that's some of what it's for. And you might notice, some of you, as I've been talking, that a lot of things can come up as you hear me talk about openness, which make it feel very hard to open. Right? A lot of things that are in the way of this kind of openness can come up. So you might be feeling things from your history where you were open and it didn't go so well, where you got hurt, where you felt vulnerable, where there were issues of safety, right? Openness as an idea doesn't sound good to all of us. We've had various things that contest the goodness of openness, the fitness of it, or rightness of it. And another thing that can come up as a kind of barrier to feeling this kind of experiential openness is thinking we know, right? If we think we know what something is, it's very hard for that experience to open. If we think we know what it means to be sad or angry, what it means to have attention, what it means to be closed, if we think we know what the world is, what we are, then it's very difficult for the experience to open, right? Because opening is a kind of meeting of what you do know and all the possibilities that you have no clue about. It's a kind of exactness of knowing something, but not knowing everything and wanting to know everything. That's the kind of uh, dance or the kind of uh, alchemical process at play, is this play of knowing something, but not everything, and wanting to know, knowing and not knowing, knowing and wanting to find out. So if we think we know all there is, if we think we know who we are, if we think that our experience begins and ends with, I'm mad and that's it, end of story, then there's not a lot of room for anything to open. So I want to try our hand experiment again. And then I'll say a few more words, and then I'd love to hear from all of you. This time, as you close your eyes and you sense your right hand, I want you to make a firm kind of fist. Suppose you can have your hand on the table or on your lap, and just make a firm fist and sense what that feels like. Feel the pressure of the holding, some kind of hardness in it, a collection of energy. Sense of kind of not moving. And then very slowly, I want you to start relaxing the hand from the center. And then just one by one, opening your fingers. Very, very slowly. See what that's like. What happens as your hand goes from a firm kind of holding to slowly the fingers opening. You feel something like release, something like a softening. Does it feel more vulnerable? Did you feel stronger with your hand clasped tight? And you can just play with that. Just go back and forth a little bit, making the tight fist. Just allowing your fingers to fall open slowly. See if you prefer one to the other. See what your experience of space is when your hand is closed tight and then when it begins to open. What does it feel like? Feel like something widening, getting bigger, softer. Good. So maybe take a few moments and just write in the chat box. Let me know how that closing and opening of the hand was for you. Let's see what you found. Yeah. Keeping the hand closed requires effort, some preference for the fist, a vulnerability that comes with opening, going from something heavy to something light, wider field and space, some chi from our Shanghai participants. Yeah, and that moment of it's hard to open when our hand is a fist, that first moment of unfurling can be hard. That's exactly right. That's a good thing to see. And a tenderness, more room. Yeah, that the fist felt like it engaged your arm. And when you open the hand, it feels like it's not you anymore. The difference between a strong fist and a kind of vulnerable hand. Yeah, so we can see, right? All of the experience that is possible and all of the ways that we feel about opening something as simple as our right hand. Now imagine if what we're opening are the depths of our heart, right? If so much can be experienced in opening the right hand, imagine what it's like when it's the very stuff of us that's being touched, that's opening. It can bring up a lot. And so I just want to acknowledge that. So as I think about this openness being with you, talking to you about it, I can see how part of what is most magical about this kind of openness that can happen when our consciousness wakes up to itself in our present experience, in the exactness of where we are, is that it can become a doorway to everything. All right? Everything that is possible can appear right in the center of our experience. We don't have to go anywhere. It's not so far from us. We don't have to try so hard, right? We just be where we are. And Hamid talked to you, those of you who were on that last webinar, about the kind of experiences that are possible, all that is available to us. And so, what I'm doing with you today is showing you the doorway to all of that, to all of what he described, to all of the riches and magic of being, of human being, right? This being where we are, this opening to our present experience is the doorway. It's a kind of wormhole once we get practiced in it. We don't have to go very far. We don't have to do much. We just drop in, get in touch, and get interested. And all of reality can show up. And because it's our experience and not someone else's, because it's where we are and not where my friend is, everything that arises is personally relevant to you, right? We're not working on Hamid's experience or on mine or on your spouse's. You're working on your experience. So what arises is perfectly tailored, perfectly attuned to exactly what it is that you need, want, are. So I think that's about all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, great.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for showing up. We here at the school are committed to making this teaching accessible to those who are interested in it. And so I appreciate your taking the time on this Saturday to learn more and to follow your interests. Hamid will be doing another one of these free webinars in September, and I'll be doing one in November. So you're all welcome to attend those. I wish you a good Saturday and look forward to see you again somewhere.
Thanks, Zarina. And also, for those of you who are new to the Diamond Approach and would like to learn more, we do have an on-demand course called the Introduction to Diamond Approach, and Zarina is one of the teachers that's part of that on-demand course. And I'm going to put in the chat box a link to it and a coupon code. So if you are interested in taking a deeper step forward, we'd love for you to join us there. And again, we'll send out this link in the coupon code in a follow-up email to you with an edited copy of this recording from today, and also an evaluation survey. We would love to hear from you about how we did today and ideas for future programming, because we really want to be able to, again, as Zarina said, make this teaching accessible. So thanks for your time today. Zarina, thank you for your time today. It was very sweet to interact with you, and I appreciate your teaching today.